252 passing yards at halftime against the worst or one of the worst passing defenses in all of football.
It defies explanation how they continue to win this way. One of my neighbors is a Steelers fan. He's from Pennsylvania and is a Steelers fan, and I texted him after the game. I was like, your team is the best I've ever seen at winning ugly games. Y'all make it as ugly as possible, and then you win 18-16 or something like that. I mean, that's just who the Steelers are.
And it's like Mike Tomlin almost mesmerizes the other coach, because Prince Law is asking a great question. How do you run a 2-point conversion play if you're Baltimore and you don't have Derrick Henry on the field?
That's
well, hey, how about this? Todd Monken did not call Derrick Henry's number in the entire fourth quarter. So you've got a one-possession game. The reason you went out and got Derrick Henry was to close games out, and he doesn't even get a touch in the fourth quarter. I mean, Ravens fans have to be sick to their stomach because they had every opportunity. They got outplayed, but every opportunity to win that game late, but you didn't have Henry in the game, which makes no sense.
Not just no Henry. It looked like they didn't even know what the play was.
Yeah.
Which is weird on a 2-point conversion because
discombobulated is what I saw it described.
Well, Lamar rolls left, and it looks like he's looking to throw, and there's no receiver.
Yeah, who was
there.
calling the game yesterday?
I can't remember, but the analyst
they were
was like,
this is like designed to throw it, but there's not a receiver.
That's right. That's what the analyst was like. There's no receiver over here, so I don't even know what he's doing because.
Is there a chance Lamar ran the wrong way? Everyone
could
else?
have. Could have. It didn't seem like everybody was on the right page for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of, if you think ugly, winning ugly is bad, losing ugly is worse. The Jets yesterday against the Colts, they lose, but with Aaron Rodgers, future Hall of Famer quarterback, first 5 drives, not one, but 5 drives, 3 and out.
Yep.
No first downs. First 5 drives with Aaron Rodgers against the Colts.
Yeah, I think he's approaching close to 50 starts without a 300-yard game. And you were on your 4th kicker in 4 games yesterday. Anders Carlson was the guy. He made a career-long 57-yarder. But how do you have 4 kickers in 4 weeks?
Yeah, that's hard to do, isn't it?
Yeah, it shows you that you've got a shitty organization.
Yeah, it really does. And I did not watch a lot of this game, but a lot of the chatter I saw about it was the Jets were playing it at half speed, like acting like they didn't want to be out there. And Aaron Rodgers is the leader of that.
And Robert Saleh is probably looking at this. They're 1-5 now after firing him.
Yeah, that helped.
It wasn't a Saleh problem.
Nope.
Yep. You can say what you want about him.
All right, that's the NFL tonight. Texans and Cowboys, 7:15 on ABC and ESPN. Show being brought to you by DanielMooreArt.com. We'll get back to college football when we come back. The Legend is a tribute to Coach Nick Saban that Daniel A. Moore has put together, sort of a thank you to his 6 national championships in Tuscaloosa. You can get that painting right now, ordering it at DanielMooreArt.com, DanielMooreArt.com. Maybe you want to remember one of the great wins of the season for Alabama, especially if this turns into a championship year. Deuces Wild, Ryan Williams and Xavier Brown, the Deuces for the Tide offense and defense, beating Georgia earlier this year. This is a preliminary sketch you're about to see. You can pre-order those right now at DanielMooreArt.com, DanielMooreArt.com. And don't forget the 2025 calendar. It's available for the Tide fan in your life. Coupon code TNR for 20% off. TNR gets you 20% off right there at DanielMooreArt.com.
Follow The Next Round on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Next Round Live.
There's only one Champy's world-famous fried chicken. Poor boy's tenders, full fried chicken plates, and a little bit of the Mississippi Delta with chicken on a stick and hot tamales. On your way to or from the big game on Highway 119 in Alabaster, stop by Champy's Chicken.
Everything Next Round is on demand now in the podcast section at nextroundlive.com.
Already that time again, Unlocked with the man, Fox's Brock Huard, right here. Brought to you by mybookie.ag. Remember, put in that code next round. They will double your initial deposit. That simple. Mybookie.ag. Code next round. Brock, welcome back, my friend. I hope Stillwater was nice last week. The Coliseum, which, God, it was so beautiful on Saturday out there. Was the weather absolutely perfect?
Perfect. 100%. And I think at one point I said to my producer before kickoff, I went down to field level to kind of walk the field. I always like to do that, Lance. Kind of the last thing that I do in my prep is to see these guys in person, see the field conditions, and just kind of looked around. And it's one of those places, it's a little bit like Lambeau. not a little bit, a lot like Lambeau Field, where you feel the past. My first time in Lambeau Field was as a rookie. We played there in '99. Mike Holmgren returned to Green Bay and Brett Favre and all that stuff. But in pregame, and Boomer Esiason was on the call Monday Night Football. I remember seeing him pregame on the field before, and you're like, man, you feel the ghosts in this place. Like there is still some Lombardi over there and Bart Starr, and there's an aura to it. And the Coliseum is somewhat similar. There's been so much history in that building, right? In all of sport. Baseball used to be played in there. The Olympics played in there. And you kind of, not just the football that was once played and been played, but you do feel the torch is up there, glorious day. From the booth, we see the sky drop of LA. Like, it's just, it is. It is not the best thing of LA, because the rest of it, the trash, the traffic, the pollution, the rest of it, I couldn't wait to get out of there.
I thought you and Benetti were going to pitch a tent down in Skid Row and be daring and see if you could make it a weekend in the slums of Los Angeles. Let me ask you.
You been down to LA Live lately? In and around LA Live
the last time I was LA Live was 2016, so it's been 8 years.
Okay. Well, they put us there, and it's great. The JW is awesome.
Yeah.
And the whole kind of setup. There's
got a Ritz right there.
But you walk 2 blocks away, which I did, and I'm like, I got to get the heck back to the hotel. This is just disgusting.
Bring your Kevlar.
So sad. Yeah, so sad.
Jaden Maeva gets started. I know we don't really start USC. The only thing I would say is Julian Lewis, number 2 quarterback in the 2025 class, decommits to Lincoln Riley in USC, and I don't think it was a Maeva decision. I mean, look, Jaden played nice. I mean, he started out slow, and he found his rhythm and, ended up having a good, solid game en route to a win. He's not the future, though, is he?
Is that how, and excuse me for not knowing the big story, is that how it was kind of presented, that Julian decommitted? No,
I think it was just a random timing, and I kind of say that tongue-in-cheek, that Maeva would make the number 2 overall quarterback decommit. It is interesting, though. The 3, it seems like, finalists now are Georgia, no surprise, Colorado, if Deion's around, and Indiana with Kirk Cignetti's new massive deal. But good for him, man. If I'm an Indiana fan and you lock him down and the way they're playing, and obviously a huge game we'll get to in a little bit in Columbus, but if he's got the number 2 quarterback looking at Bloomington,
sure,
good for him.
Yeah, pretty big deal. I think it was a little bit more, if you kind of followed the timing of all of that. I don't know if it was as much Julian decommitting as it was USC going, we kind of like this kid that's at A&M, and being able to get him to flip to USC, and then Julian to do what he wants to do. I mean, when you travel every weekend and you're at Penn State and you're at Colorado and you're at all these spots, Lincoln Riley's resume is pretty good, Lance, of QBs. In fact, I don't think there's anybody better as far as being number 1 picks and Heisman Trophy winners and everything else. And I think that there were kind of 2 sides to that story. I think there's a USC side to it, to what they felt was in their best interest, a Julian side to it that felt like was in his best interest. And ultimately, they part ways, and hopefully for both sides, it is a benefit in the end.
Okay, I will move on to meaningful teams here with Brock Huard, but I do want to ask you. I want to ask you about Nebraska, though, because now 3 consecutive 1-possession losses, 4 of their 5 losses this year, 1-possession losses, and you kind of talked about it on the broadcast, man. It becomes, I hate to call it part of the culture, but it's like, man, we're in a 1-possession game in the 4th quarter. I know the fan base is like, we're going to find a way to lose this game. I mean, it will be another 1-possession loss. And I just don't know how it continues, because I think Matt Rule is a hell of a coach, that we've seen him build programs from scratch. Obviously what he did at Temple, and then to revive Waco and Baylor. Didn't work out in the NFL, but, these things happen when you don't have a quarterback. But, man, I just thought that this was going to be the year. I know they got a true freshman quarterback, and you got to work through that a little bit, but I just thought he would win some of these 1-possession games.
Well, I blame you in the next round. Not necessarily you, a little more Dunaway than you, because it was the next round that really picked Nebraska to win at Indiana, and that was the beginning of the end.
Not me.
So they were doing just fine till Dunaway has to open his big flapper, and then our buddy Satterfield, who loves you guys, and I love Marcus, and I think we can all point to, like, it was really your guys' undoing. They were just fine.
That was Dunaway.
And then you had to pick.
Hey, Holgerson's hair. He had the hat on Saturday. Did he have the hat off for the meetings?
Yes. And was he curling his hair And did he not look exactly like an old George Carlin? Is that his name? Carlin, the
Yeah,
old comedian?
yeah.
Bro, it was Benetti sent a picture while we were on the call.
You got to send it. You got to send it to me.
Oh, God. I mean, he didn't take a picture of Holgerson on the Zoom, but he sent a picture of Carlin that, I mean, spot on, like exactly the same. The hair starts about here. Yeah, and he was playing with it. And he was an absolute kick in the pants. One of my favorite meetings all year long is he was just like, yeah, I don't know what to, what this is going to look like. I mean, it's just a crazy, crazy deal to be inserted there. I get it if you're Matt Rule, and I remember I talked to Sapp before the game about it. There's a lot of things out of his control, but I think from Matt Rule's perspective and the way that he portrayed it, it's like I am starting to realize that like my heavy hand at Bill Parcells and the way I want things and everything is kind of and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it's kind of sucking the oxygen out of the QB room and the confidence out of some of it. And I need somebody to come in here and just play with big stones and big balls and not be afraid to roll the dice. And Dana's got some of that. Now, can he do it in 3 weeks? Can he do it in a system that's a foreign language to him? Can he do it with personnel that he's just trying to learn their names? He literally, Lance was telling us that he was studying flashcards at the hotel for like 6 hours a day of the plays, of just trying to call the plays. And because I said to him, like, I remember when I got into a new system, you sit there and you look in the mirror and it's red, right. Okay, red, right, red, right. Okay, red, and you're trying to visualize and picture, okay, red, right, tight, close, see left, and you're just all this language. And he's had to do it in a hurry, expedite everything. But I think that was for trying to find a way to do what you just said. Just cut this negative psychology out, and let's bring some of this Mike Leach, air raid, just big balls, not afraid. And, they need to find a win in these next 2 games for sure.
It is Unlocked with Fox's Brock Huard, brought to you by our friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. They will double your initial deposit when you mention next round. Sides, totals, player props, they've got it all. You could have even bet on the Paul Tyson fight this past Friday night. By the way, did you watch?
So we were in our production meeting, and we had it on before our production meeting with some of the other fights and everything else. And we finished our production meeting. The fight was still not on. People were texting on our team, and they were like, this is a disaster. Like, it is glitching. I can't even watch this thing. If I tried to watch it on my phone, there's going to be no chance. So kind of glad I didn't. But it sounded more WWF, like back in the old days, like crazy WWF than it was any kind of boxing fight.
You missed absolutely nothing. Okay, so the Big 12 is the conference that continues. It's the gift that keeps giving. Colorado wins again. BYU finally loses a game. You look at the bottom of the conference, Utah and Oklahoma State are a combined 1-13 in conference play. And at the top of the conference, BYU and Colorado are combined 12-2. It's just been an insane year. In Kansas, your boy Klatt was on with us earlier and was talking about this meme that's going around. And Kansas is the Grim Reaper that is knocking at everybody's door after what they did to Iowa State and this past weekend against BYU. And Kansas did it differently. They did it with defense this time. Jalen Daniels coming into this game had been playing really good football. Now they host Colorado. And if Kansas is to win this game, it will really throw a wrench in everything. Colorado and Arizona State, they control their own destiny as far as winning out and playing in the Big 12 championship game. Mm-hmm. But it's a dangerous game for Colorado. You've been on the call for Colorado a couple of times this year. Kansas, didn't play well early on, but they look like they've kind of turned the corner.
Okay, so 3 things here. I'm going to take this conversation Lance, 3 ways.
Nice.
Okay, number 1, I have this game this week. So, during the warm-up to the show here, you were seeing me glue my board together. Yes, I've got Colorado for the 4th time going to Kansas.
Wait, real quick, do you need readers for that? I mean,
I do.
Yeah, I was about to say, we're about, I knock on wood, it'll happen overnight. And let me ask you, because I talk about Michelson Laser Vision, 205-969-8100, michelsonlaservision.com. Got the LASIK done 21 years ago. Still got the 2015. I mean, you put me in a sports bar, I can see the ticker across the room.
Wow.
I'm looking at this, and I can still see it clearly. But I heard it's just going to go out at any time. Was it literally one of those things you wake up one morning, you look at your cell phone, and you're like, I got to go big font?
Not one morning for me. It is for some others. But Molly, my lovely wife, finally, because I bought, these really cheap readers from Costco, and they kept kind of growing in the magnification level of it. As some of our listeners, I'm sure, are familiar. It was great, like 3 pairs for $19, but she wasn't liking the look of them. She felt like it really aged me beyond some of my wrinkles and dry skin. Everything else was already doing sunspots. So we went to the optometrist, and I was scared to death. Like, I don't want to know. The combine, Lance, gosh, I'm just taking this everywhere. I apologize.
What was your
So
40 at the
combine,
combine? Were you a 5'2" guy?
No, it's combine. I should not have run. I didn't train. I should not have done that. I jumped pretty good, threw decent, but they wanted to keep taking these X-rays and MRIs of my back, and I'm like, no. And I had a conversation in the hallway with Marvin Demoff, my agent. I said, Marvin, I have been here for 3 hours. They've X-rayed everything on my body. Now they want to do an MRI on my back. I don't want to do an MRI on my back, because I don't want to know what I got going on. I know I have, I've got a tight back, and I'm sure if they take an MRI, they're going to see issues. And sure enough, man, I had as it turns out, this pars fractures and, some real issues that eventually caught up with me 6 years later. But I'm glad I did not do that. That was the right decision then, because I don't know if I would have got drafted. Fast forward to the optometrist, and my thing with Molly is like, if I got this, macular degeneration, if I got crap going on, I don't want to know. She's like, no, we're going to get this done so we can actually get glasses that are actually built for your eyes. So no, definitely wear glasses to read this. And up in these huge, booths that we're in college that can be, 6 miles away from the field, definitely wearing those. When it comes to Kansas, Colorado, 3 things. Number 1, I have the game, which is awesome. Number 2, if you were on the other end of the phone that I was on yesterday, Lance, and they said, okay, where do you want to be next weekend? So this weekend, definitely want to be Colorado, right? They're one of the big stories of all of college football. Following weekend, if you had to pick today, and you don't get to see the results of this weekend, and you have to pick today, would you rather have Houston at BYU or Arizona State at Arizona for the final weekend?
Oh, I don't like Tucson. I think Tucson is a dirty town.
But I asked that solely for this purpose.
Okay.
Do you think ASU beats BYU this weekend?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the question.
Yeah, I do.
Obviously, we want to try to be where the story is, and if ASU beats BYU,
and to answer your question, I want to be in College Station that Saturday.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad either. Yeah, that'd be pretty good.
A little Texas A&M for the first time since 2011. That's going to be quite the atmosphere, and we get to that game next week. But I do think Arizona State wins, but I think Kansas wins. I think it's another one of these weekends in the Big 12 where you're just like, my gosh.
Well, if you're going to build a team to beat Colorado, okay, and I've seen them 3 times. I'm actually going to go watch them practice on Wednesday. I've not been able to do that over the course of the season, but it's going to work out Wednesday to go watch them actually practice, Lance, because I've got to see the sausage being made behind the scenes, because the product on Saturdays has been awesome. They've been undefeated when we've been on the call, and obviously had a great win over the weekend with the big noon guys there. But if you were to kind of put together a team, right, to contain and beat Colorado, what would you want? You would want elite corners. Kansas got 2 of the best corners in all of college football. Right? They're long, athletic, veteran, take the ball away. We'll love the matchup of Travis, and it looks like Korn probably isn't going to go, but you need people to match up on the perimeter. You need an offense that can play keep away. You need an offense that can run the ball, and I think be very, very multiple, because if you line up in base sets, what Colorado and their NFL defensive staff have shown is we'll take that apart. We got guys for that. But you line up in stuff that they line up in, and you run speed option, and you got a really good running back and a running quarterback and some pretty good receivers too. Like Kansas is a little bit like SC, 5 one-score losses. Like they're just right there. Like the margin for Kansas and USC of being 8-2 and being 5-5 is literally a play here, a play there. A minuscule difference. But not able to do it, and that's Colorado has, and will be quite a scene, I think, at Arrowhead.
Yeah, and look, Devin Neal is one of those running backs where you can lean on him, and he could do a lot of good things. So I am interested. I will say this though, and you can back this up. It seems like every game you're on for Colorado plays lights out.
They do. Yes, they really they like me on the call. By the way, Devin Neal, you mentioned him. I think you'd be the biggest fan of his high school mascot. Just knowing Lance, just knowing the way you're wired.
Is it a shark?
Over these years of getting to know you. He went to Lawrence High School. Do you know what their mascot is?
I should know this because I've spent a lot of time in Lawrence. And I actually, one of my now, I guess, ex-cousins by divorce went to that high school. You're going to have to help me.
Well, I'm 99.9% sure. Maybe they've changed it since. I don't think so. They're the Chesty Lions. Chesty.
Okay. Yeah.
Chesty Lions.
Okay.
Say it with your chest.
I got a Chesty Vizsla. So I
say it with your chest. Okay. Say it with your chest.
Chesty Lions.
I think so. Yes.
Hey, who do you guys have this weekend? We've got the Lawrence Chesty Lions.
Yes. By the way, can you stick your chest out? How was the weekend? How did
yeah. So listen. So I was 2-0 Friday night, college football.
Okay.
Then I had 13 plays on Saturday. I was 6-7, but I do have to go through this real quick. I had Notre Dame minus 21.5. They are up 28 with a 1st and 10 with 3:45 to go on the 15 of Virginia. They end up trying to settle for a 36-yard field goal. He misses with about 2 minutes to go. And I knew at that point, you know what? Virginia's going to go down, score with no time left, kick the extra point. I'm going to lose by half point. It's exactly how it played out. I had San Jose State plus 14.5. They're up 14-0. I mean, Ashton Genty and the Broncos were going down. And then just a slew of craziness in the fourth quarter, and the Broncos end up covering. And then you get a late touchdown in the fourth quarter against UNLV, and I lost that game by a half. So I was 6-7, should have been 9-4, but yesterday in the NFL, 3-0, my friend.
Not a boy.
Yeah. So anyway, I can stick the chest out. It was not a bad weekend at all. Do want to ask you, Georgia, Tennessee. I can't figure out who the best team in the SEC is. I think when Jalen Milroe is playing elite football, I think you can make an argument with Alabama's defense under Kane Womack, the way they've turned the corner over the last month. I can make an argument for them. I can make an argument for the Georgia team I saw go on a 31-7 run to close out Tennessee Saturday night. Obviously, you can make an argument for Ole Miss 2 weeks ago, dominating Georgia. Texas, I thought they played their most complete game against what has become a pretty improved Florida team 2 weeks ago. Texas went through the motions. They beat Arkansas this week. But, I mean, there's so many teams in the SEC you can make an argument for. So I'll ask you this. It'll be one whole question. Best team in the SEC and then best team in college football.
Texas. So every week I put together a little, each, I think for our friends over at Outkick, put together a little poll of the best team in each conference, and as it kind of lays out with the playoff stuff, I would say Texas is the best team. Now, obviously, Bulldog fans are like, really? Did you watch what we did to them and taking them apart physically and mauling and manhandling? I did. I kind of have confidence in Sark. I kind of like Kwiatkowski. I kind of like that roster. I kind of like the fact that they, and many of those guys, were there a season ago on a run to a national semifinal. So I probably lean into Texas. And yeah, I think Oregon is pretty dang elite. And I know it was windy, and I know it was cool, and I know it was tough.
Should have lost.
Late in the year.
Should have lost.
Get a bye now.
Should have lost.
But yep. They should have, could have, would have lost. And obviously a risky call there by Deion late. But
dumb call. Not risky, dumb. Stupidity.
Yeah, that was silly. That was a bit much.
Yeah.
Especially with
look,
the holder,
you go up 6 there. Like Braden Locke, you could get a pass interference. You could get a personal foul, and you could maybe get somewhat in field goal position to get that game to overtime. They weren't scoring a touchdown on that Oregon defense late. So you take the 3, you go up 6 there, and the game's over.
Yep. Yeah, that thing had to be so clean. There had to be like no margin for failure. They had to be so misaligned defensively that to even entertain that call. But I'm with you. You just left too many things in doubt. But I like that roster a lot. I love their secondary. I love the depth of linebacker. When Birch is going, that D line is deep. They run through you. They've got a lot of I think it's Oregon's best team, the best roster. I think Texas is the best in the SEC.
You are a detailed, organized guy, but with your schedule, it's difficult at times to watch all the games. I have the luxury of legitimately sitting on my couch from 11 a.m. Central Time to whenever the game's over, and I guess it was New Mexico and Washington State this past week. Fantastic game. So I'm able to watch all of these games. How much of Georgia, Tennessee did you get to watch?
Yeah, quite a bit. quite a bit. We had the game right before it, so I was able to watch a huge chunk of that at the airport, even then onto the plane. And I think Beck, responded. I mean, that was a game that he had to have for obviously his team now, for his future prospects. He just struggled so mightily, had been so careless and inaccurate with the football. And he kind of, you go one of two ways, man. And we had Mike McDonald on our show this morning. It's an old Navy SEALsism, but you clear the room. Okay, and the Navy SEAL, like, we got to clear the room. You move that room aside. Now we get to the next battle in the next room, and that one is cleared out. And I thought he did a remarkable job of that, of not allowing the past and the dirtiness and the messiness and the mistakes that he had made in the past to interfere with the duty at hand. And yeah, I thought he outplayed his counterpart. And that Georgia crew, man, when they're healthy, that looks and feels like an NFL front seven. And we know this late in the year, and you get to the playoffs in the NFL, you get there in college football, like, hey man, Michigan won a national title, and they did it, yeah, with different pieces, but more than anything, a front seven that was just that dominant and knocked Penix around. And when you get front seven dominant in front four play, you give yourself a chance. And I think if they can all get healthy, man, and firing, and he doesn't make mistakes, they are a really, really tough out as well.
Yeah, going into the season, if you would have asked me, I would have said best quarterback's Carson Beck. I would have said he's probably going to be the number one overall guy next May. And away from Athens, he's shaky at best.
Yeah.
And, he's 2-2 right now away from Athens with losses to Ole Miss and Alabama. Quality losses, but he hasn't played well. 3 touchdowns, 7 interceptions on the road. If you're a general manager, how much does that influence you when you look at a guy's prospects for being a franchise quarterback and when they're so different at home to how they play actually on the road?
Oh yeah, I mean it affects you tremendously. I don't think there's any question about that, any doubt about that. Two things in my mind goes as you ask that question, and actually what Matt Rule said that he really is appreciating about his young quarterback Raiola, who is struggling. I think 2 touchdowns to 8 interceptions the last 4 games, and a bunch of these losses as well, and he's feeling it mount. But part of his recruiting pitch to Dylan was, listen, you can go to Georgia, you can go to Alabama, you can go to Ole Miss, you can go to these places where 8, 9 of the 12 weekends, your talent is going to be superior and that much better. Ohio State, Oregon, and just the guys that you have are going to set you up for success. Or you can come to Nebraska like Josh Allen went to Wyoming, or Patrick Mahomes went to Texas Tech, or, different guys through the years where you got to do it every single week, where if you're not on and you're not elite, your team's not going to win. And, he was up for that challenge. And right now he's in a valley and he's battling his tail off. But overall should, help you and make you better down the road. Lance, I don't think this is a very good QB class. And I think we're starting to see the trickle-down effect of all of this change. That coordinators change, QB transfers. We certainly see it hit. Dylan Gabriel's hitting right in Oregon. Great personnel around him, and it's working there. But by and large, like you look at a lot of the QB play, the conference that I've been in a lot, the Big 12, I'm like, oh, is this good defense or is this bad? This is bad quarterback
I
play.
agree.
This
like
is bad quarterback
I think
play.
Shador
This
is
bad quarterback play.
Shador is really good. Dylan Gabriel's coming off his worst game of the year against Wisconsin. Cam Ward is really good, but I don't know if these guys I feel really good looking. He's being the coaching decisions right now in Chicago are awful, but I still think Caleb Williams is going to be a franchise quarterback. Jaden Daniels is going to be a franchise quarterback. I wouldn't have thought Bo Nix, but again, Clapp brought up the point. It's perfect marriage with that offense with Sean Payton. But I don't know if you have a legitimate guy that you look at and you're like, as good as Shador is, I don't know if he's a franchise quarterback.
I think he's a franchise quarterback. I think his mind, I think his arm, I think his poise, I think he's a franchise quarterback. Is he the number one? Is he an Andrew Luck or a Trevor Lawrence or a Peyton Manning? Absolutely
No, take
not.
Trevor Lawrence out of that. We can't do that anymore.
Okay, well, I apologize. At least coming out of school, he was thought of in that light. Yes, it's been a bit of a struggle bus down there in Jacksonville, but he's not. I don't. Frame wise and size wise and just overall dynamic. Yeah, I think he's a top 10 quarterback. And I think he could be a franchise guy if he's surrounded with the right people. But Lance, this is the year of the running back in college football, man. There are every single week, and I'll have it again with Evan Neal. I've had it all season long with Monangai up at Rutgers and Genty at Boise State, and over and over and over. There are a lot, kind of like the NFL game right now. Frankly, Saquon Barkley and King Henry are like showing you that, man, that position still can make a difference. And with all of the change of quarterback and all the dynamics that go into play with timing and precision and knowing the system and all of that, it's a little wonky with QBs. Running backs, hand on the ball, go make a play, go run over there and use your God-given instincts and your strength and your abilities. And yeah, we've seen Harvey down at UCF and the kid at Texas Tech. Boy, like Taj, there's a lot of really good running backs in college
But
football.
coming into the season, and I want to get back to this because I got to ask you one more bet question. But coming into the season, Judkins and Henderson, if healthy, that was by far the best duo. And, like, the numbers just haven't been there. I know they continue to win, and the 1-point loss in Austin to undefeated Oregon. I want to circle back because we want to get into Indiana going to Columbus. But first, I want to ask you one more thing about Carson Beck. As a former quarterback, one thing when you watch Georgia, we talk about lack of playmakers as opposed to when you had Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers, two guys that showed out yesterday as rookies. Yep. He's got a ton of drop passes. Georgia leads the SEC in drop passes. And if you're Carson Beck, as a former quarterback, like, I don't know if you went through that. Is it something where you go to your receivers and you're like, get your head out of your ass? I mean, how do you handle it?
Yeah, I mean, that particular dynamic is challenging and difficult because then all of a sudden you throw one bad ball and they're going to come back at you and like, really, bro? Why don't you put it on me? So I think you got to massage that. Most of those guys aren't wanting to drop the ball, as long as there is a really high want to factor in practice and everything else, most of the time that sorts it out. I don't think he throws the easiest ball to catch. I think it's kind of a high spin rate. That can play a role as well. Like, I don't think I threw the softest ball either. I think it kind of game with some velo and at times was probably not the easiest thing to catch. But
that was your back issues.
Yeah, the back issues. But ultimately, Lance, like, push comes to shove, right? And I think I've shared this with you in the past, kind of projecting these QBs is when they walk on the field and it, like, you can call it the it factor, whatever you want. But, like, do they elevate the people around them? Right? When they walk in, Shedeur elevates the people around him, right? Cam Ward has elevated the people around him at Incarnate Word and at Wazoo and at Miami this year. When Carson Beck walked on the field last year and walked on the field this year, do you feel like he really elevated the people around him, or it was more about the people around him? Sam Howell is a great example. Sam Howell, if he'd come out of school the year before, right, with all of the NFL weaponry that he had around him, great year, super productive, probably a first-round pick. Decides to go back to school. I went back to school. I could have come out in 97 after my third year with all of his talent around me. Probably would have been a late first-round pick. Go back to school, get beat up, don't have the supporting cast, struggle, break down fundamentally, physically, emotionally, and fall to the third round. Sam fell to the fifth round. I think Carson Beck falls out of the first round just because I don't know if he's one that just elevates everybody around him.
How often do you go into your quiet room and play the what if game? If I just would have come out in 1997.
Zero. Honestly, zero.
I'm kidding. I know you better than that.
I know, but I went back to school, got married at the end of it, got drafted by the Seahawks, got to stay in town, Lance. Really, the only what if, honestly, is not about whether I should have left that year, because it would have been interesting just with my maturity and everything else. Going through adversity was not a bad thing. Here's my what if. If Baltimore would have done what they said they were going to do. So I take a pre-draft visit there, me and Brandon Stokely, who's got a dip that's fallen out of his mouth. Can't understand the Cajun he's speaking. We take a pre-draft trip there. I sit with Billick and Ozzie Newsome, and they tell me point blank, here's the deal. We're really split in the organization. Half of us want to take Chris McAllister. Half of us want to take Dante Culpepper. And if we go McAllister, then be ready at 42 in the second round if you're still there.
Yeah, by the way, both McAllister and Dante, good selections.
They both ended up being pretty darn good in the NFL. Well, they take McAllister. And I'm like, great, here we go. I'm going to be a Baltimore Raven, right? As long as nobody else takes it, we get to the second round, like, okay, here we go. Pick comes up, like, okay, here we go. Come on. Ring. No ring. Traded for Tony Banks.
Oh, wow. Former Rams quarterback, Michigan State. So would you have a Super Bowl ring with the Ravens with that great defense if you would have gotten drafted?
I would have fit in Baltimore so much better than I fit in the West Coast system. I was a run, play action, chicken deep. So obviously Tony Banks to Trent Dilfer to Elvis Kerr, but yeah, that supporting cast, that defense, that run game, Jonathan Ogden, that's the only what if. Like, what if I would have ended up there? How different could it have looked? But you know what? Lord had different plans. So here I am with you.
Okay, so 3 to 4 really good minutes on the game you guys have got early, Gus and Klatt, Indiana, Ohio State. Nobody's giving Indiana any shot. You've had guys like Dunaway that have been doubting them all year. The problem now is Dunaway's like, if Indiana loses a game, they should get in. So now that he's kind of buying Indiana, they probably get run off the field. They're a 12-point underdog. If they play their best and Ohio State plays down a little bit, Indiana can win this game. I think, and I said this earlier, I think Indiana probably loses 17 to 21 points. But what is the key to Indiana going on the road in what will be a hostile environment? I know Buckeye fans are upset they don't get any night primetime games, another 11 o'clock window Central Time. Mm-hmm. But what would the key for Indiana winning this game outright be?
Yeah, the health of their QB, right? How healthy is that thumb? I think having a bye week this late really, really helps because Rourke is a really good player. Like when I watch his tape, and I talk about being down on a lot of these quarterbacks, and there are a lot of them that are really struggling in a bunch of places. You'd have to add him to that list, wouldn't you? With Cam Ward and Dylan Gabriel, of guys that have transferred and just absolutely taken off. It is a system that is diverse. Their O-line is so much better than they have ever been at Indiana when I have covered them. They are hungry. Their secondary is vulnerable. And if this game were to go the way of the Buckeyes, that O-line for Ohio State, which has been maligned. When I watched him against Nebraska, Ty Robinson was the best player on the field. He mauled and manhandled anybody on that Ohio State offensive line. So if their four can impact that offensive line and really handle those guys the way they've handled everybody, and Nebraska did in that building a couple weeks ago, they can win this game. There's no question in my mind. If that four cannot impact, and you see Will back there patting the ball, you see a diversification of run game, and here come the play action shots, here come the one-on-ones against a secondary that's very vulnerable and has not seen the likes of this Ohio State receiving core. So, yeah, I think it really does come down to the deep. Indiana will move the ball. Indiana will be prepped. Indiana's coming off a bye. Indiana will score some points. Can Indiana's front four do what Nebraska's front four did? And that is really maul and manhandle the point of attack.
Guess who leads the Big Ten in sacks?
The Hoosiers.
The Hoosiers with 31 sacks, over 3 a game.
Yep.
That could be a problem. I mean, you know this. A sack is basically a turnover.
Yes.
Yeah.
You pick especially at like a 4 or 5, 6, depending. It's a 1-yard sack. Not every sack's built the same, but yeah, absolutely. And, I thought Will was better at Penn State. Still a pick, still a fumble into the end zone. At Oregon, I thought there were a few moments. I don't know if Kansas State if they could revisit that decision between Avery Johnson and Will. Would they have done the exact same thing? Maybe, as they went with the young guy and want to try to build around him. But yeah, I see an Indiana team, and every time Signetti's on, and every time I hear it, and everything I've heard from behind the scenes as well, there is just this like almost. I don't want to say it's not delusional in any way. It's just why are you doubting? Like, why would Dunaway ever doubt me? Look at my record everywhere I've been.
It's Indiana, though. It's kind of like, and I know we're about to transition to the NFL. I said it earlier, like, Detroit is far and away the best team in the NFL, but I've got to be able to see Detroit get to a Super Bowl and then win a Super Bowl. I mean, it's Indiana football. As we make the transition here after break to the NFL, I do want to ask you this question. Think about it. We'll come back to you. We've got Fox's Brock Huard right here on Unlocked. It's brought to you by mybookie.ag. I was talking about Brian Kelly, and he's now lost 3 consecutive games at LSU. LSU fans are upset. They don't know what's going on. Brian Kelly in today's NIL world is a weird, complicated mess. He can't coach. He can't verbally get after these kids like you could in the past. I want to hear the hardest coach you ever played under. We'll get to that on the other side. It is a edition of Unlock with Fox's Brock Huard, always brought to you by mybookie.ag. They will double your initial deposit. Use that code next round right here on Disrupt.
Follow Scott Forrester on Twitter at scottforestertv.
Man, I love a good meal. I'm Jim Dunaway. A good meal is what you get with my friend Sterling at Champy's Chicken on Highway 119 in Alabaster. We're talking great southern fried chicken, wonderful sides, hand-cut chicken fingers, po' boys, and those Mississippi Delta recipe tamales. You got a perfect menu for everybody. Champy's Chicken is perfect for watching the big game or taking a meal to the lake house, down to the coast, or stay in the restaurant and dine in a great atmosphere. It's all made fresh to order right there on 119 in Alabaster, Champy's Chicken.
Buying that perfect home is one of the most important financial decisions you'll ever make, so it's crucial that you have the right partner to help you through the process. Hi, I'm Lisa Zeig, Vice President Mortgage Loan Officer for Bryant Bank, and I'm here to tell you that we are that partner, making it easy to buy with confidence. We offer a variety of mortgage products to fit your unique home buying situation. That kind of hassle-free approach might not be what you'd expect from a bank, but it's exactly what you can expect from us. Give me a call today or visit one of our 18 offices across the state of Alabama and let me show you what banking beyond expectation is all about.
Hey, there's nothing worse than waking up to a plumbing problem. Don't get caught in a flooded house. Call the guys at Hemphill Services. Adam, Chad, and the team at Hemphill are the only ones I trust to fix it and fix it right the first time. Hemphill Services does it right and always at a fair price. For all of your plumbing, cooling, and heating needs, trust the name that Birmingham has trusted since 1954. That is Hemphill Services. Call now, 205-229-2090. That's 205-229-2090.
Follow Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The social media team at Next Round Live is dedicated to giving you daily news conferences and practice video from UAB, Alabama, Auburn, and around college football. Follow and compare to the sites you used to visit. You'll also get the latest highlights and news from the Next Round Daily Show. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See more at nextroundlive.com.
By now, you guys know how I feel about my fashion. However, did you know that I care about your fashion choices? Cargo shorts are out, flip-flops are only appropriate on the boat, and please throw away that stained t-shirt from college. You may be thinking, EG, that's all I own. What do I do? Here's what you do. Go to nextround.store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
Just because you've quit going to the gym, it doesn't mean that you have to quit gym altogether. Dunaway, that is. With our Next Round podcasts open 24/7, 365, you can access gym anytime you'd like. While you may have done away with your treadmill routine, our version of Dunaway is standing by, ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President.
From the creators of The Next Round comes two new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. Two team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Twin Peaks is the best in the game. Here, you're in the red zone for every college rivalry and divisional matchup all season long. I mean, where else are the scenic views as good as your view of the game? Only at Twin Peaks, the #1 sports bar.
You can't wait for college football talk every Monday, so we don't make you wait. Ryan Brown here for The Next Round. You can catch ESPN's Tom Luganbill with Jim Dunaway on Monday Morning Live at 7 a.m. I'm with Brandon Marcello on the Middle 8 at 8 after The Next Round. Hear from Alabama coach Kalen DeBoer and Auburn coach Hugh Freeze. After the coaches talk, Fox Sports analyst Brock Huard joins Lance Taylor for Unlocked at 1 o'clock. All college football, all day Monday, anywhere you get The Next Round.
So after Nick Saban's final game coaching at Alabama in the Rose Bowl last year against the the champion Michigan Wolverines, a game that came down to a final play, I think Alabama fans were shocked that Nick Saban announced his retirement. When you really start to look at this and things you hear, it's a different world. There were reports that players were coming in for exit interviews, and instead of like, how can we get better? How can we win a championship and get, over a game like this? It was, what can you pay me this year? What else can I get? And I think that has got to drive a lot of these coaches absolutely mad. And Brian Kelly seems like one of those guys where his head's almost always about to explode. He's a guy that will get after a player. And today, now you get after a player and they're like, you know what? See ya. I'm going to take off and I'm going to go somewhere else and they'll pay me more money and I'm not going to put up with this. I'm not going to be surprised if Brian Kelly is out of the game sooner than later based on that kind of stuff. But back in the day when you were playing, guys were getting grabbed by the face mask, guys were getting undressed, every other play. Who was the most difficult coach, or not most difficult, the toughest guy to play for?
Yeah, I didn't have that necessarily in college, Lance. The late Jim Lambright could certainly do that, and he was volatile, as I think defensive coaches can be emotionally, but it was never really demeaning or degrading in that way. And that's a line that, you just can't cross seemingly anymore. Like back in the day, some of the things that you heard, especially O-line coaches, and that's probably the one coach, the one species of coach that can still be that way if you're on college sidelines, Lance. That's probably the one guy that they're still, especially the former players. Phil Lodeholt at Colorado, wow, he is he's hard on his dudes and challenges their manhood very much. So for me, it was probably Mike Holmgren. I had gone for my dad to Scott Linehan, who was my OC at Washington, and they certainly at times could get after you, but it was always to build you up and pretty positive in that regard. So yeah, when I got to the NFL and got to see the way the professional football works and some of the language and some of the things said, and Tom Moore out in Indy also was one that didn't really look at me very much. I think I've joked that he didn't know I was left-handed, and that's okay. But those two a little saltier than anything I dealt with before.
Yeah, they were one of the great stories, and I love when you just have one of these spontaneous stories, but it was John Kitna and how he gave it back to Holmgren.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. That was a hard meeting. In fact, my wife and I were
How many people were in that meeting, by the way? Was it just quarterbacks?
It was Mike, QB coach, OC, John, and I, so 5. Yep, and the OC and QB coach didn't say anything. And Mike did, and then John went back right at him, and it was great. And he did it without any cursing either. I mean, it was just like, hey, this is... But my wife and I, Lance, were just talking about this, with our kids. And sometimes, it's great to have high character and be super polite and be super humble. And then sometimes in this world, especially today, you've got to have a spine, and you can't just be a people pleaser. And if things aren't right, then you need to rise up, and your voice needs to rise up and be able to say as much. And so, yeah, we were having a good little back and forth of just the best way at times to do that, because I think my nature is to be a bit of a people pleaser. That hurt me professionally, quite honestly. Like if I could go back and I tell Titus this and I tell Macy this that are still competing and playing, like you can't play for the applause of people. You can't play for the approval. Too often I got there and like, okay, what does Mike Holmgren want this to look like? And how does he want me to do this? And how does he want me to drop back? And instead of just being me, right? And if you play for the applause of people, you stumble. And if you do that in this day and age, it is that much of a harder fall, because you're not going to please Twitter. You're not going to please Instagram. You're not going to please Reddit. You're not going to please all of these outlets and all these shows and all these podcasts. If you go for that, man, you're going to fall right on your face.
I know who was pleased yesterday. It was Geno Smith. It was you. It was young Titus with Seattle. The dramatic comeback there and scoring with seconds on the clock to finally get his first win over the 49ers. That now drops San Francisco to 1-3 in divisional play. The NFC West is a complete mess. Look, I know there was no Nick Bosa yesterday, no George Kittle, but still a game they probably should have won, and they found a way to lose it. And now you've just got like this bottleneck sitting in the NFC West. I honestly think, when the Rams are playing their best, maybe they're the best team, if not Arizona. I don't know where you go right now on the NFC West.
It's going to be awesome. I mean, it's going to be a little bit like this Big 12 is. It's going to be a little bit like this SEC is. Like, it's going to go down to the absolute wire here. I don't expect anybody to run away from anyone else. Seattle, if they can figure out how to play at home like they do on the road, and that is so crazy to say, but that's been the reality of this season. They've lost their last 4 games at home. They went on the road and won in Atlanta, went on the road, and won in San Francisco, went on the road, and obviously earlier in the year, but won in New England and played just better ball out on the road. So I think Mike McDonald in Seattle could be a little dangerous, Lance, because I think their front, quite honestly, now that they've got the linebacker situation and Ernest Jones in the fold, and he was incredible yesterday.
Yeah,
13 tackles,
how the Rams
McCaffrey.
gave him up. I don't care what kind of money he wanted. You got to balance the cap, but that guy, I mean, he was the captain of the defense.
Yeah, he is a baller. He just loves ball. And as McDonald said on our show this morning, finding guys that don't just love to play on Sunday, because there's a lot of those. And I think Pete was really good at finding guys that love to play and certainly had an emotion to it. And you look at the guys he's drafted in Sherm and Earl and Ham and Marshawn, guys that love to play Sundays. The difference with McDonald is he's trying to find those guys that also love Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and talking ball and living ball and being all about ball and nothing but ball. And they're going to be I think they're going to be a dangerous out. And so this next Sunday with Arizona will be a big tell, because if they can stack that game, and they played really well defensively against the Rams, had every opportunity to win that game, they just turned it over too much. They play that kind of game defensively, they will be in it to the very end.
Yeah, I think if you ask 4 different people involved in the NFL, like who wins that division, you might get 4 different answers. I know probably not the same in the AFC West, but the Chiefs finally lose on the road to a Buffalo team that, didn't have Keon Coleman, didn't have Dalton Kincaid, so they were a little beat up. Josh Allen played a nice game there. They put a 30 spot on KC, the first time that defense has given up 30-plus since 2022. But you start to look around. The Chargers' defense leaked a little in the second half, but they still found a way to win that game. Denver, really, they should be 7-2 in their last 9. Bo Nix has only thrown 2 picks over those 9 games. They lose on the blocked field goal last week, but they bounce back, destroy Atlanta yesterday. So if you ask people best team in the AFC West, most would say the Chiefs, but I'm not so sure once we get into December. I know you got Pat Mahomes there, but the way the Chargers and the Broncos are playing, I mean, both of those teams look like playoff teams right now.
Kind of finding their identity in both of them, right? And in doing so with, the first time really around the block with Bo Nix and Sean Payton and he being a rookie and Jim Harbaugh inheriting you could see why he wanted that job, right? And he wanted Herbert, who he just absolutely loves, and he is getting the very best out of him. But they're just building an identity. And you do wonder, when I look at San Francisco in that game yesterday, and I do watch the Chiefs last night, eventually, Lance, the NFL does such a remarkable job, better than all of their peers in all of professional sports, and beyond the gambling and beyond the fantasy football and everything else, the betting. They know how to make it really hard to sustain long-term success and even year-to-year success, which makes what Kansas City and Mahomes has done truly remarkable compared to their peers of the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, because it is brutally hard to have this length of a season, brutally hard to have this tough of a schedule, brutally hard to pay your stars and have to absolutely hit on your draft picks, brutally hard, just with the scheduling and to really maintain and sustain success. And I think you're feeling some of those weaknesses in San Francisco. Yeah, and over the course of the year here in Kansas City, the Chargers are going to punch you in the mouth. Denver plays really good defense. This AFC and Buffalo just beat you and beat you pretty good physically. It's going to be a tough ride, I think, for them to get to the mountaintop this season.
One team that is awful, the New York Giants, and I got to ask you this because quarterback money's always been good. Quarterback money now is insane. When you signed Daniel Jones to a 4-year deal 2 years ago for $160 million, and he's got this clause in his contract, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are like, how can you go from the starting quarterback to number 3 behind now Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock? Well, there is a trigger in the clause, $23 million injury guarantee that becomes fully guaranteed if he gets uninjured and is unable to pass a physical in the offseason. So if he was to have one of these Alex Smith-like injuries, they're on the hook for all this money. My question to you, how awkward is that quarterback room and that organization altogether when you've got basically a dead man walking that is probably your best option at quarterback, although he's not very good. There's a reason he was starting. There's a reason you did pay him that money at one particular time. He is better than Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock, but now he's not going to play at all. I mean, that's just got to be a really awkward situation.
Yeah, this is when, you hear players say, hey, this is just the business of it. Like, this is the business of it. Like, yeah, this is right in front of you, living, breathing organism of the business of the football and what the contract is. I know I've told you the story about John Kitna, who had a similar clause that if he played similar in the sense of, they tried to hold him back to not hit some numbers. And he had a deal where in Cincinnati when he got there, like, yeah, man, if you play 90% of the snaps, you have this amount of guarantee. It was a big number the following year. And they were like, yeah, sorry. Dick LeBeau called him in, like, you know what's going on. Like, this is my decision, but yep. And John's like, okay, and then I think it was Achilles Smith that started and blew out his hamstring. John comes in the game, plays all those snaps. Following week, yep, John got to call it. I'm gonna call you in again.
Unbelievable.
And we're gonna go Scott Mitchell. Okay, you're gonna go Scott Mitchell. Okay, I think we know what's going on. Scott Mitchell, like first series of the game, breaks his thumb on a helmet. John plays every snap, gets his guarantee. Like, okay, you could try and do that. So we'll see here with old chicken tenders or Parmesan chicken, whatever he is, chicken cutlet guy up there in New York, and then Drew Lock, and we'll see what happens if indeed they can kind of do this over the course of the year.
The best agent ever, just book by cover, and that's Tommy DeVito's gangster-looking agent. So, hey, you mentioned Scott Mitchell just on the fly. Like, Cam Newton is a big dude if you've ever seen him in person. Is Scott Mitchell one of the biggest quarterbacks you've ever seen? You're a big dude, but Scott Mitchell's massive.
He was pretty large. Dante got pretty big at the end of it. Yeah, there's been Jamarcus Russell was enormous. Underrated that you wouldn't maybe think of it until you see him in person. You ever seen Carson Palmer in person?
No, but I mean, he's 6'5". I know that.
Oh, 6'6", huge hands, like just a huge, broad shoulder.
Could run, too.
Yep. Justin Herbert. First time I saw Justin Herbert at Pac-10 media days, maybe Pac-12. He had like this beard at that point. I'm like, who is that Oregon D-end / tight end / tackle? Who is that guy? That's Justin Herbert. I mean, he too is just 6'6" and broad-shouldered and super. Yeah, but Cam Newton had that same deal. We saw him at a Super Bowl party that I took Salk to, my radio co-host. We were down there for the Super Bowl. The Seahawks were in Arizona and got invited to this really fancy party. And yeah, there were a lot of celebrities, a lot of dudes. And then when Cam Newton walked in, Salk's like, dude, that guy is enormous. And his presence is just overwhelming with kind of his size and his whole aura as well. Yeah, he was one big sucker too.
Okay, before we get out of here today, 158.3. What does that mean for you? And I'm going to guess, no offense, you never achieved that?
Perfect QB rating?
Yeah.
No, never.
Hey, Jared Goff again yesterday, 400 yards. They lay 52 on an awful Jacksonville team, but still, I mean, to go 644 yards in the NFL is absolutely insane. And what this Detroit offense is doing right now, like, and you were the first to compare them to the 1999, greatest show on turf, St. Louis Rams back then. I don't know how you stop this offense with that offensive line, with multiple backs, with a great tight end, with a quarterback that is playing, even coming off of 5 interceptions a couple of weeks ago. His confidence is right back.
It's amazing, Lance, at any level. Like it's one of these like total truisms through all the different cycles of football and all the different schemes and systems and air raids and run and shoots and all this stuff. But the most basic, like run, play action. Right? And just here's the run, and we're going to make it look the same, and we can run it, and we can move you. So then when we run the exact same concept, you have to commit to it. You have to play the run. And then here comes the play pass off of it, whether it be an RPO or whether it be a vertical shot or a horizontal shot or any number of different weapons that can run the way they run, and a running back that can catch and a tight end that can catch. Like it really is, it becomes pretty simple. Here comes the run, here comes the play pass, and you can't stop it. Like it almost becomes like Tecmo Bowl, the original Tecmo Bowl. When you called the right thing, it just you totally stuffed it. You called the right thing out of those 4, it was to the house, and like Mark Bavaro, you could never take away that slant. They don't have an answer. The league does not right now for the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, look, and I don't want to take anything away from Jared Goff. I saw him in 18 get my Rams to a Super Bowl, and he has gotten much better. But I would say 25 NFL quarterbacks probably have a lot of success in this, with what's around him in Detroit.
Maybe, but that grit, man, that those peaks and valleys, that tough skin that he's developed, that lack of people pleasing, a mind that really fits with that OC as well. Like, don't discount. Yeah, from a physical skill set, sure, there's a lot of guys that could do physically what he does.
Enjoy
that
Lawrence.
Emotional and mental, big deal.
Enjoy Lawrence this weekend. We will be watching Colorado, Kansas, another crazy game in the Big 12. We do this each and every week. He is Fox's Brock Huard. Always great stuff in college and the NFL. It is brought to you by our friends at mybookie.ag. Very important. Put in that promo code next round. They are going to double your initial deposit. That's simple at mybookie.ag.